Hello and welcome back to JoeSchaeferFlyFishing.com. I'm Joe Schaefer. Today I'm going to show you how to tie my version of the Pat's rubber legs. Very effective fly that I use all the time. This is kind of my version of it, how I tie it, basically for simplicity and everything else. So I'll kind of go through this as I go along, show you guys what I do on this fly. Start off with a little lead wire, 0.015. This is a size 5263, size 12. Typically one of the sizes I use all the time is 12s and 10s, so just so you get an idea of what hook I'm using here. We're gonna first get this wire on the hook, connecting wraps all the way forward. We're gonna lay down a base of that lead wire. On these smaller ones I tend to use that real small lead just to give it a little bit of sinkability to the fly. About 13 to 16 turns on that, depending on if you're using lead wire or lead free wire. Get that pushed together there. Then next step, we're going to use a Danville 6/0 chocolate brown color. Very good stuff. Builds pretty fast. So I'm just going to lay some thread wraps on that wire. Get everything cinched up here real good. Just basically covering that wire as I go along. We're going to cover that wire, so I'm not too worried about getting it completely covered right away here. Just want to get that wire locked into place so it doesn't move on me, basically. We'll continue from there, just laying some wraps down. Main thing is with this fly, starting out here, is we want to keep everything pretty even because we don't want any bumps or bulges as we're going through this here. So next up, we're going to start with our rubber legs here, and our rubber legs are basically these mini micro silicone legs in chestnut with black bars on them. Really cool legs, a little bit easier to use than some of the other leg materials, so I really like these things. They tie in real easy to work with, and they don't fray like when you cut other rubber legs. So I'm just gonna start off, make sure your tips are even on this here when we start off, because we're going to use this material all the way through these two pieces here. So I'm going to come up about an inch on those. I'm going to bind it down right behind where that lead wire is. Sorry about that, I bumped the camera a little bit. And then I'm just going to make some securing wraps, making sure those stay in place right at the back of that wire. It's a great tie-in point for this tail because it's a real secure area. Main thing is in this fly is fighting with those rubber legs a little bit. Just kind of keep them out of your way as you're tying them down. Now as we come forward, I'm going to pull tight and I'm going to bind those legs down. I'll show you a little bit better here. I'm just going to bind those legs as I'm coming forward. I'm just twisting around. It's kind of splayed out on me there. I'm used to tying these pretty fast, so I'm trying to slow it down here. So I'm going to pull forward, bind it down. Pull forward, bind it down. That way you get a good look at it there. And I'll bring that all the way to the front. Reason being is I can tie in those antennae on the stonefly and the tail all at the same time on this fly, just to save some time instead of taking extra steps to tie those in at different time frames. So I'm pulling those tight as I come forward, get to about an eye length away from that eye, and I want to stop there just so I have a good point of reference. Now I'm going to clip the antenna here just so I don't have to mess with that as I'm coming through. I'm going to pull those legs, but I'm not going to pull them tight. I just want them kind of loose so I get a good gauge of where to clip them. Clip, and now we have our tail material and our antenna. We'll trim those up more here in a little bit, but as far as getting started here, that's what we want to do. Now I'm going to go back over, lay a thread base down. Any areas that are missing thread or uncovered, I'm going to go back through and just kind of even those out as I go through here, just catching any areas that I missed. I don't want to build too much though, because that's going to build into the body, and I don't want to, remember, we're trying to keep these as thin and sparse as possible. So that looks pretty good there. We're pretty even all the way across, as you can see. So we're going to keep that there. Now we're going to go to our chenille, and this, been working a lot with this new chenille, and this new chenille is great stuff. It's micro chenille, real tiny fibers, great for tying small sparse bodies. It's a little bit tougher to find than the regular chenille and the medium-sized chenilles, but it's out there and it's great stuff. This is a tan and coffee color, which is my favorite combo. I'm going to come to the ends here, and I'm going to take that end off and peel back to where that underlying thread is on these. Just giving myself a good landing spot for my thread to go over and to tie those in real secure. So I'm going to lay that up against the hook shank and bind it down, making sure to keep that good length and not making a bunch of bulges and everything else. So I want to go right back to the tail here where I started, come forward, making sure I stay smooth there. Now as I come forward, I don't worry about the taper here a little bit, or building a little bit more towards the front, because I want that taper there. So a little bit more taper to the front here, just like in the regular bodies. I'm going to come to the 3/4 on the shank here, and that's where we're going to put our legs. So that material that I cut off of my other legs, I come right back in. I see the bend point of the material, and then I just turn that in towards the hook shank, and that gives me my legs. So they bend out away from the body. If I were to flip that over, sometimes they'll lay against the body, and we don't want that. We want those legs sticking out like real legs would be on a stonefly. So I bind those down on the one side, come back over to the other side, find the bend point of the material, and all I do is hang it up and down, see where it bends, turn it towards the hook shank, just rotate it over and tie it in. And you can see right there how those legs turn out away from the body. So we'll bind those down. Some good turns here. I don't want those legs coming loose. And notice I'm not putting wraps over one another. I leave a little segment in there in the middle, because if you bind them down with just connecting wraps in one area, it could cut through that material. So I tend to grab a little bit more surface area of those legs to bind them down, a little bit thicker in through here, so that way those legs don't get chopped when they're getting fished and things like that. So I'm going to bend those front legs back now, and I'm going to come to towards the head and thorax here. Just build up a little bit more, just to build that thorax up a little bit. A few turns back and forth. Again, I'm not being super proper with this. I don't want it to be too time consuming. We just want to get it in the ballpark is basically what we're looking at here. Okay, so return my thread to the front. Now we're going to wrap that chenille forward. Hardest part of this is keeping those legs out of your way. A lot of times with these legs, as you're coming forward, they'll just kind of turn out of the way. So good connecting wraps. Make sure that they're nice and tight, keeping that body real slim as I come forward. Got one leg that doesn't want to work with me there. Now as I get to here, you're going to see there's kind of a gap there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to capture that first leg, okay, and I'm going to come in between it, and then I'm going to pull that back, the leg closest to me back so it's out of the way. And I'm going to come in front of it. That secures those legs real good, is that little cross hatch right there. So then I'm going to come to these front legs, and I'm going to pull them back, and then I'm going to wrap directly in front of them with a tight turn. What that'll do is put those legs right in the spot that I want them. Okay, come up to the top. My thread jumped there a little. So we're going to make those wraps with the thread here. We're going to bind it down real good, all the while holding on to that material, because if you let go of it, sometimes it'll spin back on itself, and that's not good. You'll have to start your wraps all over again. And I'm just showing you here, good 5-6 turns. Then I'm going to come up, trim that chenille out. Okay, right there. And then we'll do our whip finishes. Now, a lot of times you can cut these legs before you whip finish, and that'll help keep that those legs out of the whip finish. So I'll come up to the top, hold them straight up, and I'm going to kind of cut at an angle here. I'm not going to pull tight. I'm going to leave them pretty loose, and I'm going to cut at an angle. We'll come back and fine tune those in a minute. So I'm going to bind, make my whip finishes right in front. And typically on this type of deal, I'll whip finish twice just to make sure it's good and secured. Again, your legs will still kind of get in the way, but it's good enough. So we're going to trim off that excess. Now, as we look at this, we want to keep it as close to the original stoneflies as we possibly can. So we're going to, these legs are a little bit long, and I tend to leave them a little bit longer because I can always trim them up on the river. I'll trim the front legs a little bit shorter than the back legs. Come in here and trim those out. Trim up that back leg just a little bit. Got a little bit too much there. These I kind of ended up with a little bit shorter, but you can get the gist of that. The tail, I tend to clip a little bit shorter too, because they got those kind of stubby fork tails. And then antenna up front. So that's my version of the Pat's rubber legs. Very effective pattern. I've been using this for many years. This is just kind of my version. If you tie them like this, you cut a lot of steps out in the original pattern and just get a good, quick Pat's rubber legs out of that. And this color combo is also my favorite. Works very well all across the West here. Hope you enjoyed this video. Please subscribe below. Take care and have a great day.